Hey everybody, we are live. Welcome to Stranger Things Episode 2. I'm your host, JD, along with my super host, Mr. TJ, the SLABDRAGON Watson. Tonight we have a very special show. I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves, but if you don't know, I'm JD. Welcome to Stranger Things. We're going to show some things other than comics, even though you see comics up here. Or we're going to show Stranger Things and comics, not just your keys and anything else. So I'm going to introduce... First, I'm going to introduce my partner in crime in this one, Mr. TJ Watson. SLABDRAGON?
Good evening, everyone. Hello.
There we go. Oh, he's a man of many words. Then you have, introduce Mr. Chad at 90MF Comics.
Yo, what's going on, guys? I'm really excited to be here. Thank you guys for letting me join. And I guess we'll get into my situation when we start talking about our statues.
Very cool, very cool. And now we have George, our newest guest from MCE, and I'm going to let him talk for a brief moment and explain because he's kind of new to our side of the community. So here we go.
So, guys, I'm George, also known as the Marvelous Knight over at MCE. We do a range of different collectible videos from statues to comics to pop figures and all kinds of things in between. So, you know, we do a lot of pop culture geek stuff. That's what we're all about. That's what I love to do anyway. So
very cool.
I'm happy to be here, man. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much. Well, tonight's show is a little bit, we're going to talk about statues, everything from the small to the big to the expensive to the inexpensive, so to speak, to the limited editions, to the, you can still get them out there if you want them. So briefly, I'm just going to explain the premise of what we're going to do. Each of us are going to show our statues here and there, the ones that we want to show and whatnot, talk a little bit about them. And then we're going to have a little Q&A. I'm going to have a few prepared questions for George and TJ as they're the experts. And then anybody in the chat who really wants to talk about statues and ask some questions, I ask you guys to go ahead and do that. So let's see. First, I got to shout out the chat. I always forget to do that. Hello, Perry Comics, John's Comics with Kids, Barbara Lopez, hello. Let me look here. Comic Head 84, how are you doing? We got Halaya Comic Bro, hello. Comics Misexplained, Comic Noob. We've got Dark Mufasa, very cool. The Model Vault, excellent. And Mr. Garrel, how we doing? Very cool. So, real excited about that. Thanks a lot for everybody for joining us. So, now I'm just going to briefly just talk a little bit about the statues I have. The statues I collected or I own are pretty much Thor and one Thanos. I have 3 of them that are here. These are 2 Randy Bowens and 1 Diamond Select Premier. I think that's how it's called. Mine are based on comic book covers, or at least I say they are. So, this one here reminds me a lot of my Tales of Asgard 1. Just a flying through the air and the cape, the way it's lined up. This one needs no introduction. Of course, Silver Surfer 4, and this is the actual Silver Surfer 4 is even an Asgard lineup in the background like it is in the corner over here. It's very well represented. So I had to get that when that came out. John Buscema drink, who's ever playing the drinking game. Then you have this one, Randy Bone, which is one of my favorites I've ever got here. I think it's based on the Silver War 3 cover, just because it looks real similar, even though you get a profile shot of the of Mjolnir. Or I kind of dug back into Thor 229 was the other one that I always remember him slamming the hammer down with one hand. When he slams it down with 2 hands, obviously Avengers 12 and about 30 other books. So that's my statues that I collect. Now I'm going to hand it off, take a deep breath, and have TJ show a few of his.
I started collecting statues and action figures actually before I got back into comic books in 2005. And my first statue by Sideshow ever was the Green Lantern. And then that started my addiction on statues. And this is a small sampling of some of the stuff I could actually carry into this room by myself, because some of them are pretty heavy. So,
well, look at some of those. You got the Green Lantern there.
I got Pinhead, I got Captain America, Daredevil, Red Sonja, the Court of the Dead, Queen, Vampirella, Superman, and an alien bust. This is my only bust so far.
Very cool. George, you want to share a little bit what you got going on?
I've been collecting now for big statues for about 4.5 years. Prior to that, I was collecting mostly video game collectibles, anything that came with the collector's edition of a game. So I usually have those 6-scale pieces and everything. My wife she sells fine art, and she came home and saw these statues, and she thought that I needed to up my game. So she bought me the Mythos Darth Vader that you see in the back there.
Beautiful.
And then the addiction started after she brought that one home, and I saw the level of detail in a larger scale statue versus the smaller one. And I was like, okay, I need to get bigger statues. So since then, I've owned everything from Kotobukiya to Sideshow, XM Studios, HMO Collectibles, Iron Studios. I mean, I've pretty much seen every brand out there by now, and varying levels of quality and size. My latest one is Thor, and just did a review on him. He's sculpted by Daniel Bell, and probably one of the baddest looking Thors I've seen to date. It's the most action-packed one, at least that I've seen.
Oh, Mjolnir and Stormbreaker.
Yeah, I know, right? Dual wielding and getting all in there. But mainly, I'm a Star Wars collector first. I've always been. So I have a lot of Star Wars pieces.
Here.
Yeah. I mean, you don't see it, but I got a Lego Millennium Falcon right down here. And it's huge. This thing is like 25, 26 inches wide. So it's a big piece. And I got a lot of other things. So I got like a Link statue over here, Kratos from God of War. You see the speeder bike over there. It's got some Spider-Man over here, Ninja Turtles. I even collect props. So I have a lot of different things, art prints. There's really no end anymore. Now I'm back into comics, so it's just going nuts.
Yep, that's what happens. Here's my little one prop is my
nice. I like that.
King Arts Winter Soldier Edition Captain America shield, which is a good 20 pounds. So it's tough to walk around a con with that. I'll tell you that. Chad, want to show your Funkos?
Oh yeah. So I know I don't have any statues as of yet, but earlier this year, I was lucky enough to join George and the MCE family. They brought me in to kind of talk comic books, and I would like to think that's the reason why George is getting back into comics. So I'm not in the statue game yet, and just like our MCE brother, the marvelous Pop Knight himself, Seth, I got some Funko Pops. It's like the closest thing I have to statues, you can say. So most of my Pops, and I have more, of course, this isn't all of them, but most of them are all Star Wars related. Kind of like George, I love Star Wars. So when I got into the Pops, they were all Star Wars related. And then I've kind of branched off and gotten a couple like of the comic book ones. So, you know, for instance, I got the New 52 Joker here. I went and got the Flashpoint Batman, Martha Wayne Joker, Thomas Wayne Batman, this gray Superman chase that glows in the dark. Being a big Star Wars fan, and Thrawn is probably my favorite character, I had to go get the Thrawn Black Series figure. So that was another thing that I collect. So not on the statue level yet. I'm sure I'm going to have to get a statue because I'm part of the MCE family. So by the end of the year, I'm probably going to have to make that happen. I plan on doing that. But for right now, holding it down in the Pop game. Shout out to Seth. So, you know, showing off a couple Pops. So that's pretty much what I got going on here.
Very cool, Chad. Well, actually, you're part of the reason that you're on the show is because some of us have bought statues. Obviously, the other three of us, we bought them. I'm interested in sideshows, but again, like I tell everybody, I have an 18-month-old and a 3-year-old, and you know, I have a hard time with them in the supermarket touching things. You know, they'll break a box of cereal. But anyway, so one of the things is how did people go about buying some of these higher end statues? Now, some of them are higher and higher. So you've got your medium level ones, which I would say to around $100 level. I see a lot that go for about $150 as a starting MSRP or a $99. Some that are below that are really nice. I see that there's a great Doctor Strange for like $45 that I'm interested in, just really big. And that's part of the problem I have is space. And they're really big, and you know, people have never seen this Randy Bowen I have here, which I love, because I always keep it off to the side because it's so big it doesn't even fit on any of my shelves. So that's good stuff. So I'm going to talk to the chat a little bit. Again, hello, Just Rican. How are you? Tony Sanders is here. That's great. We have Mastodon is in the house. Very good. Very cool. He had to go. Mr. Montoya, very cool. Anyway, JP's budget collecting. How are you? So here we go, and Comic Books NYC, of course. So one of the cool things I just want to do about is how would you go about, Chad's a great example. He's got into the Funkos and he's spending the $9 to $15, I guess, is what they cost. I think, I guess that's what they run. So if he wanted to get into statues, and he's got a lot of favorite characters and stuff like that, what are some of the brands that you can be called like starter level statues? So I'll leave that up to either TJ or George if they want to help that out.
Go ahead, George.
Okay. You generally, if you're starting out and you want to get into something that's not quite that expensive, Diamond Select, Kotobukiya, and I think Randy Bone doesn't make statues anymore per se, so you can buy those like on the second market. But you can usually get those at local comic book store or at Big Bad Toy Store. And like what you said, those range in from like $45 upwards to maybe like $150. Right now we have a segment on our show called Collecting on a Budget, which Calvin, the statue fanatic, he has that show, and he basically goes over every week with another inexpensive piece that looks cool. So,
right. And you will on the rewind, I'm going to include a link to MCE as well as TJ and Chad's channel there, and I recommend everybody do it. I came across that channel because of Chad, and it got me hyped up. And when they did the review of this lovely Thor that he's got going on, it's pretty impressive right there. So that's a great part.
Thanks.
So then you've got, I see a lot of the names, and the big name that everybody talks about is Sideshow Collectibles. Sideshow is, I guess they're the Cadillac of statues, or the one that everybody wants. Is that pretty much the standard from what I'm hearing?
That and XM Studios.
XM Studios. I'm not really sure, but I'm not that familiar with them.
And Prime One Studios as well.
Yes.
So who runs those companies? Are they connected with Marvel and DC? Do they offer outside of the comic world?
They lease their rights.
Yeah. They lease their rights. Okay. Very cool. So if anybody in the chat has questions, just pop up them. I'm in. John, you let me know which so I could see real fast John's Comic with Kids if anybody has any questions. But some of the other issues I've had is cleaning them. Dust collects. Depends on where you are, but some of these things have so many grooves and nicks and everything in it. Any recommendations on keeping them as pristine as you can?
I have the compressed air cans that I keep with me. I have several cans actually back there, and I have a makeup brush. And you basically, pull your statue out, you blow it with air, and you go over it with the brush and try to get as much of the detail as you can.
Yeah, very cool.
Another thing you can do is buy a what do you call those machines to help with dust in the room? Losing my train of thought at the moment.
Dust buster? Oh, air
purifier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dust buster. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
but that helps.
Yeah. These guys had a great show last night with Randy Bowen himself, and the interview was pretty. And I was intrigued at just how much of an artist he truly is. So keeping him clean and everything else. Inevitably, something may happen. What if they get damaged? Obviously, the value will plummet, but you don't want to toss them. What would you say? I mean, everybody's concerned about it. I freak out when the kids walk by them. I actually had when I was single in my own apartment, my own little Baxter Hotel thing going on with really cool window. I had this got chipped a little bit on the back. Somebody cracked it. What about damaging it? Pretty much, do you repair with glue, or you just say let it go, and if I find a new one, I'll buy a new one?
I had an unfortunate accident with my Conan and the white gorilla statue, the Beast, where it actually fell off the stand and broke into several pieces, but they were all clean breaks. And I actually glued it back with Gorilla Glue, no pun intended. But it worked perfectly. You can't even tell it was broke, and I'm never going to sell it, so it doesn't bother me that much. But it looks absolutely like it was brand new.
Very cool. George, have you ever run into that unfortunate incident?
Yeah, actually. Funny story. I had one statue that I was about to review, and my room is not that big, so I'm trying to maneuver around it and get the camera angle right as I'm trying to take a picture in my hand. grazed the sword, and the sword came clean broken off. So I hadn't even done the review yet, and I was like, shit. So, so I had to glue it back together. But I mean, if it's a piece that I'm keeping and it's a clean break, I'll glue it back together. If it's something that I'm selling and it's broken, then obviously I'm going to tell the person that's buying it, hey, this is broken, and I'll give them the option if they want me to fix it or not. But yeah, I mean, I'll try to fix it if it's clean.
Very cool. So one of the questions from the chat here is, how did you get started in statues? I'll tell my brief story. It was this statue here. I was in Des Moines, Iowa at a comic shop, and it was like not New Comic Book Day, but it was like a 50% off weekend. I think it was like a Thanksgiving weekend. I was visiting some friends out there. And I went into the store, and I never had any statues, and I'm a short boxes all over the place kind of guy and everything else. And they had this in the box. It was brand new. And I think it was like a $240 price tag on it. And he said, everything is 40% off today till noon. And I was there at like 10 a.m. And I was in there walking around, and I picked up like a few books here and there. I don't remember what the books were, but I remember, does that include that statue? And he's like, I guess so. Yeah. Well, I paid $135 or $140 for this. And somebody turned around and says, man, that's a great piece. And it does have some damage. It chipped up here. And that was when I tried to put it on the shelf, and it just clicked right there. This is just the cape is literally half the size of the statue. So that was how I got into it. So when I first got into it, I got really interested. And then obviously this was a gift, an AOK I got years ago before I was ever on YouTube. This was an AOK from the CGC community. Guy sent me this. I thanked him very much. He said, hey, I have bought 4 Randy Bowen Thors, and I figure I'll send you one. And then this one, my local comic shop had it, and it was out for a while, and I could have gotten it at Midtown Comics forever, and I missed my chance. Then one showed up at my local LCS, and they called me and says, hey, we have that Buscema homage, Silver Surfer 4 homage. So that was how I got started. Was I based everything on covers of comic books I like, because I definitely consider myself a comic collector more than a statue collector. But you know, if you guys want to tell a little brief story about how you guys got into this.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, TJ.
I just got into it because I just thought they were started with McFarlane 12-inch action figures, and they were very detailed. And then I went to Bowen statues next. And then when I discovered Sideshow, the size, for me, the size matters. I don't think I could ever go back to the 1/6 scale anymore. It has to be 1/4 or bigger. But I just love the way they look. I think they're great pieces of art. It's a nice compliment to comic book collecting.
Excellent. And George, I think we touched briefly on it in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, like I said before, my wife got me into the bigger scale statues, but my love for statues went back a lot further. The first statue I ever saw was one of Randy Bowen's pieces. It was a Wolverine. When I walked into the comic book store, I'm an artist, so I sculpt and I paint also. So when I saw the statue, and I was like, damn, it looks so cool. You know, I couldn't afford it. I wasn't making any money back then, and I was still in college. And I knew that at that moment I wanted to get into art. And yeah, so when time came that, you know, she finally bought me this one, then I was like, okay, I'm finally making enough money where I actually buy one of these things. That's how I got into it. I've always loved the look of the statues, the 3-dimensional aspect of it, and you know, bringing a comic book to life is how I see it.
Very cool. One of the things in the chat somebody brought up about something I'm not aware of is, are there concerns with unlicensed statues?
You mean the commissions and custom made stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know that much about them to comment.
When you're saying concerns about it, like, is it hurting the license game, or are you talking about concerns of the buyer buying one?
The buyer buying one.
Moving into a custom statue is kind of tricky. First of all, it's really hard to get into any of the private groups that do these things. Generally, most of them require that you have bought one from them before for you to be in the group, which kind of defeats the purpose. I don't know how that works exactly, but so you have to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody to get into one of these groups usually. And then it's risky because One, they charge a much higher deposit than what you would get from a license piece. So like a sideshow statue is like a 10% deposit, right? So on a $600 statue, you're going to spend $60 on a non-refundable deposit. With custom statues, they can range anywhere from the $60 to $100 to $400 of a non-refundable deposit that you're never going to get back if the statue doesn't get made, or it it comes in, or you decide that you don't want it anymore after the time, or whatever. Another thing that happens with those type of statues too is it takes a long time for them to get produced. So that's something that you want to consider also. You go to order something like that, you may not see this thing for a year to 2 years.
Excellent.
So
that's good information there. A couple other questions here I had is, speaking of Sideshow, I follow them on their social media websites and everything else, and I always see them at the cons. They debut the new statues at the cons and everything else. I'm going to get into cons a little bit with statues, but one of the things I don't know, what's the best way to buy sideshows, because there's the pre-sale, then there's they hit the market, and then there's the aftermarket. So I don't know how much price fluctuation. It's not like comics where sometimes you pre-order a comic and it's you pre-order it, it's $3. Next thing you know, new comic book day, it's limit one per person, and then it's Immortal Hulk and it's a $60 book. So I don't know if that happens in the statue world. But speaking of, the only reason I bring up Sideshow or the other big company you talked about is because I know that the moderate statues, they don't really change in price. I see the same price everywhere I go. Sideshows, I see different prices depending on not just the size of the item or the actual one, but even if the two exact ones, like the Bride of Frankenstein, costs more than the Dracula. That kind of thing. Is it the secondary market that's driving it? Is there a true secondary market, or is it, do you pre-sell, or do you
I find that if you really want a statue, pre-order it and wait for it to come in, because usually, probably 80% of the time, if you do aftermarket sales, it is going to be more expensive. They rarely go cheaper. I mean, unless the statue sucks, no one wants it.
Right.
But if it's a good statue, it's going to go up.
Yeah, I really missed out on my Thanos. This style Thanos by Sideshow with a light up Infinity Gauntlet, and I had it in my cart ready to go, and I actually got a huge coupon from Sideshow to do it, and I was about to do it, and I was like, I don't have a place for it because it is huge. I mean, it's literally like, I don't know, it's bigger than I wouldn't know where to put it away from my three-nager and my son. So so it's just one of those things. But I did miss out, and I do see it on the secondary market for about $1,200 to $1,400 when I could have got it for $800. So what about you, George? Do you tend to buy yours on the pre?
If I really like it, I'll buy it on the pre-order. My suggestion on it, though, but I'm also watching the trends. It's like in my group, the Marvelous Knights on Facebook, you see how people are excited about certain pieces, and I'm in a lot of different statue groups, so I see how people get excited about them. When the Thanos on Throne came out, for example, there was a lot of hype for that statue. So I had this just gut feeling that this thing is going to sell out, and I bought it like I was lucky enough to get it on day one. That thing sold out in less than 5 minutes. So it was just one of those pieces. Some of the other statues, though, like Sideshow tends to have a thing with them that they don't list what the edition size is right off the bat. So you could wait. You don't have to pre-order it on day one. Sometimes you can even wait for a review and see how the reviewers feel about the statue, and you can see the actual final product. Because there is also a thing with Sideshow too about that their prototype and their final result, they tend to vary sometimes. So sometimes what you see in the pictures isn't exactly what you're going to get. So sometimes it's better to wait for that first review before you shell out $600 or $1,000 now. But the last Thanos on Throne was $1,250.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Chad, how are you? You taking all this in?
Yeah, I'm taking notes.
Good. Because I want you to get a statue this year. That's my goal for you, to get a statue.
What's funny? Comic Head 84 on my warm-up stream before this, he was saying the same thing. He's like, "Yeah, we got to get you a statue now, bro. We got to get you a statue." I'm like, here we go. The wife's gonna love that. She's gonna love that one.
So Well, you brought up some great things, George and TJ, that I didn't really aware. Now there are limited editions. What are usually the edition sizes? Because I'm just going to bring up this one. This is a statue I got for $20. There's only 750 of these little Silver Surfers. I know it's cute, but there is a Grail I'm looking for in the statue world, and it is a Bowen Chrome edition Silver Surfer. But I haven't been able to find one in person. I mean, I'll talk about eBay in a little bit of how to get them, but again, there are limited edition sizes. What are the sizes of the standard Sideshow? Do they range from 1,000 to 100? I mean,
I have a Conan exclusive edition that was only 200 edition, and then you got things like the exclusive Superman that are in the thousands. So
okay.
it really varies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Depends on the piece that you're going to get. Like Sideshow tends to vary wildly. Like this one here is the exclusive. There's 1,500 of these made. There's the Hulk versus Wolverine that I have. I think there was like 2,500 of the exclusive or 3,000 of the exclusive. Yep. Nice. Spider-Man had 5,000. Yep. So they range crazily. Then you get into the other ones like Prime One Studios and XM Studios. They're far more limited. So they're
far more limited. Okay.
Yeah, those would have edition sizes of like 600 and below. Now,
comics have like first printing and second printing and third printing. So they don't just make more if it sells real well?
They make variants sometimes.
They do.
Wow. Yeah, so like Prime One Studios cut a lot of beef on that. They had like a Batman statue that they made 4 of them and they made one that was black, one that was all gold, one that was that looked like the Batman Batman Arkham Origins.
Okay.
And then they had one that was like all white, that was the Batman Arkham Knight, but it was a full all white suit. And it was basically the exact same pose of the statue, just different armor pieces on them. So
very cool.
And Sideshow made a statue of Batman once where they had the black bat, and then they came out and that sold out and put one with the yellow symbol. And
yep.
That didn't go over well with the fans.
Nope.
Oh, wow. So there is some pushback around there. Wow. Yeah. Just want to say hello to C. Woodard in the chat. That there, Dark Mufasa is answering some great questions for everybody. The Model Vault, how are you? Put it in the playpen. I'd like to put my kids in the playpen more, but there you go. Comic Noob again. Good seeing everybody. 90 MF Comics, Chad. Love how you're sending your own. You're keeping an eye on the chat with everybody too. Another question here: are there Grails? Is there the Ghost, the unicorn of the statue world? Like, I always say. Weird Tale 74, which is a really hard to find Captain America book. I consider that a ghost. Is there statues that are Grails like the AF-15 or the Silver Surfer 4 of statues?
Yes, but the Grails are I feel are much more personal. I mean, there are some that the general community feels that it's a Grail, but like for instance, there's a Predator statue. I can't remember who made it at the moment. It's a very big statue. That thing sells for like $3,000 to $4,000. Now on the second market. Very hard to come by statue. Not too many people sell it. There's also XM Studios Magneto on Throne. That's another highly sought after piece that not too many people let loose. And that one's like about a $3,000 statue now. Normal price when that first came out was like $700 or $800.
One of the statues I missed out on as well was back in the day was the Galactus Randy Bowen.
Nice.
It was the biggest statue at the time, and I was at Midtown Comics when they got it. And my friend who was working there said, if you want it, I'll give you the 20% off. And I'm like, I can't take this on the subway all the way back up to the Bronx. I mean, walk around with a big purple dude like this thing, because of course it was his floor model. And he said, well, I'm like, where's the box? And he's like, well, it's here. And that's another thing. I don't know about you, but I have a hard time putting these things back in boxes when I have to move locations.
Yeah.
I save the boxes and they never go back in, and they squeak every time. I don't know. It's just annoying. That's styrofoam and its worst thing.
Yeah.
But one of the other, do you guys have personal Grails on the level of statues?
For me, two of my biggest Grails I want to get is Sideshow Pumpkinhead statue, okay, and the Sideshow Man-Thing statue with the glowing eyes, and those are both around $3,000 now.
Okay,
nice.
George, you have
for me, I recently got the Ben Kenobi Mythos. This was one of my Grails. I just got that actually last year, and I mean, Anymore with the statues, that was like my last one that I'm going for with the old ones, because they're very expensive to get. The older pieces that like for instance that there's one, the Ghost Rider from XM Studios.
Yeah,
I love that piece. And I'm not even a big fan of Ghost Rider himself, but that statue looks amazing, and it's like a $2,500 statue plus, you know, and then you got shipping on top of that.
I'm still kicking myself for not getting the XM Studios Black Bolt statue, because that thing is beautiful.
That's pretty nice. I've seen that actually in my local comic book store. You probably still get that for, you know, fairly close to retail.
Yep. Which was $1,000.
No, actually, you can get that thing for like $700, $600 to $700. Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. One of the my grail is that Randy Bowen Silver Surfer. Yes, the Thanos, and I did like it a lot. It is really cool. It's just too big. I know the Silver Surfer is bigger, but I just love it's narrow, it's thin. Have you guys ever seen the? They make two editions. They make the bronze and the chrome. I mean, I've seen the bronze. I want the chrome, but it's just hard to come by. The secondary market is where I'm relying on that. And some people in the chat have been asking about the secondary market. Where's the best place to buy them on the secondary market? Is it eBay? Because I'm terrified. I mean, if I get a book broken or bent by shipping, I kind of lose my mind. If a statue comes and it's broken, it's just heart-wrenching. Well, or if I ship a picture and it breaks or something, you know.
You still have paper protection if you go through eBay on statues. So,
right. but they're so limited, you know. Like it was one of 700, let's say. Now it's one of 699 because this one's in pieces, you know. Yeah. And I'm sure that's probably part of it. So eBay, any other good secondary sites? Is there like a
Facebook? There's several buy-sell trades in Facebook. I run one myself, and that's a good spot to go to. You can get what do you call it? References for the person that you're buying from a lot of times. So that's cool. Because a lot of the statue community, we all know each other. So right. You get a lot of good references there.
That's kind of like us in the comic community. We're learning each other. That's great. We're going to cross there because that's the other thing. You said you're interested in getting into comics and everything, and it's different, but it's not. There's a lot of similarities I'm hearing right now that I didn't know. Limited editions and variants, stuff like that, as well as there are grails, there are hidden ones. When did this statue craze? No, just brief history thing. When did it take off? I mean, because I remember I think Bowen had to be the first. At least or that Japanese company, Kabuki.
Bowen and DC Direct. DC put out a Sandman statue, which is one of the first statues I ever remember seeing when Sandman first came out. The DC Neil Gaiman Sandman.
Right.
And it was like a 12-inch statue, and it was $75, and it was the hottest thing in the market back then. Everyone wanted statues. And I think that's where it's kind of started.
Very cool. And I guess Bowen was the thing that started everything. I remember seeing
Bowen is one that elevated to the next level.
Yeah. Bowen put it into a huge next level. It's great.
I started seeing Bowens all over the place in the comic shops. And then they had there's 7 or 8 different Silver Surfers. There's the bust, there's the Galactus scale one, which you would put actually attached to the Galactus statue, and it would look like he was flying around. Galen, I'll use his real name on that one. But then there was a Superman, and now I see there's DC. There's something. I don't know who makes them right now, but I see a lot on Midtown Comics. There's DC Bombshells, DC this, DC that. Is there a company? Does DC
Collectibles?
DC Collectibles. They have their own. Does Marvel have their own statue company?
No. Marvel, I guess, sells out their licenses to different people. But yeah, DC has their own.
Yeah.
I remember this goes back to the early 90s when you used to get those snap together models of the monsters and then they added the superheroes. Remember those?
Yeah, the kits.
Well, that's where I said statues. That I had the Darth Vader one, the big Darth Vader helmet one. I had a few other ones here and there, R2D2, and they started to do comic ones and they just weren't selling anywhere, and at least in my local shop. But then when Bowen put out comic book accurate, and I think that's one of the things I wanted to, touch on here towards the end. If you're collecting everything from Funkos, which this isn't really about Funkos, but Chad's here. If you're collecting Funkos, and you're collecting Bowens, what do you look for in a statue? What is it that you look for in a statue?
It really depends. I mean, like the Bowen statues are known for being very comic accurate. So that if you like comic accurate pieces, that's where I would lean to. And they do look really good next to the comics, but sometimes they're like direct rips right out of the pages or out of the front covers. Me personally, I like dynamic statues. I like anything where, something is like this, jumping in the air and, lots of energy, lots of power in the piece. Those are the things that I like the most. High level texture work and detail. I'm always into that. So yeah, I tend to gravitate towards stuff like this. So
TJ,
I was going to ask George, what do you think why did Bowen stop? Is it because they lost the agreement with Marvel and put him under, or?
I didn't ask him that question yesterday. I know there was he had a divorce that happened to him, and I think that had something to do with it. And then there was the license, but I can't say for certain because I tried to stay away from that question when I was talking to him yesterday. Didn't want to get too personal,
So Chad, I'm going to give you the floor now about Funko Pops, and you're going to graduate from. I mean, I'm not knocking Funkos, but you keep it in the box. As opposed to statue collectors, notice how the statue collectors are out of their boxes.
I hear you.
Why do Funko people keep them in the box?
Well, there's two different types of Funko collectors. You have in-box collectors and out-of-box collectors. I just happen to keep mine in the box because I can't really display mine. I don't have a place to display mine outside of the box, so they're just super easier to store in the box. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And I guess, want to reference a question John asked me in the chat. I'm just laughing because I'm just thinking of Seth because he's more of the Funko guy than I am. I just kind of do this like as a side thing because, as you guys know, I'm more into comics. But John asked me what my most expensive Funko Pop was. And I guess if I had a Grail. For the Grail part, I'm not too sure because I just kind of like look out for like the Star Wars ones because that's mainly what I collect. But I want to say the most expensive one I have is this one, which is my hooded Luke Skywalker, which was a exclusive when it came out. So
very cool.
That's to answer John's question. So thank you for the question, John. I just feel out of my league, I guess, with the Pops and with the statue.
Oh, no, I do.
To your point, it's like a gateway,
Exactly. That's the gateway drug to Sideshow. I mean, Funko Pops are cool. I like them. My daughter loves them. I like them. I have, about 4 or 5 of them. I've got every Thanos ever done, including the rare ones, gold ones and stuff. I have friends of mine who go get those for me at their shops and GameStop variants and stuff like that. But last bit here.
Just a second, Chad. Am I understanding correctly? You're a big Star Wars fan?
Yeah. Oh, he's taking notes.
He wants them to get to know everybody.
Yeah.
So, one thing about collecting these statues and getting into it, and for everybody in the chat, thanks again for being here. Especially, we have a lot of people from the MCE channel, and Cat Ren is here, who knows all about figures as well. Great art, like a comic, you keep it in the bag and board. Oh, see, Cat Ren answered the question right there. Keep it out there because the boxes aren't with it. I actually keep the boxes pretty readily handleable for my statues. For some of them, one of them I keep out because, well, let's be honest, it's my favorite. It is what it is. And I keep this out just because I just love, as many times as I can see the same pose over and over again, I'll take it. But they're made out of different things. Are most of them just resin, or what's the material that you look for in, like, what makes Sideshow? Because to me, Bowens look better than Sideshows, and they're kind of both the limited range. Is it the material that's made in it or the detail?
I think the difference between Sideshow now and Bowen back then is that a lot of the Sideshow pieces are digitally sculpted, so you get a high level of detail with Sideshow. With the Randy Bowen pieces, what makes them awesome and valuable is that all of those are usually primarily hand sculpted, and so you have a much more earthly type of feel to the sculpt. And that's something I respect, you know, like, and that's not to say that Sideshow doesn't do that still either. Like they just released a Swamp Thing that came out, and that was completely hand sculpted, and you got to see the detail on that. That's insane.
Okay, I think I definitely will, because I'm a.
Have you actually seen that Swamp Thing by Sideshow, George?
Yeah, I saw it in person at San Diego Comic-Con 2 years ago.
There was a big controversy because it was going to be made out of resin or a lot of plastic to it. Did it make a difference, or is it something that's still worth getting?
I think it's still worth getting because the piece is not completely plastic, or I think they said it was going to be PVC.
Yes.
With the underlying sculpt is still a resin piece. It's still a heavy piece. It's just all of the I guess they're like tentacles, and I mean it's kind of, he's got like kind of like leaves and all kinds of
muck,
muck and stuff that hang off of him. All of that is done in a PVC, and that's just to keep it from breaking when you're shipping. So, you know, that's really the only thing, but it's still a huge and heavy piece. I think it's like 27 inches tall. It's big.
Wow.
So
I guess now coming down in here about the Sideshow and collecting statues. TJ, I want to ask you on your collection there, your Captain America is the tallest. How big do they go? I mean, 27 inches is almost, you know, you're talking a little bit over 2 feet.
Most of them are around 2 feet. I don't think I have anything more than 2.5 feet.
Because Galactus was big.
Conan versus the gorilla is about 2.5 feet. But
they do get bigger.
Nice. Cool.
I got a Superman coming in that's 48 inches tall.
Oh, geez, wow. We'll have to watch your unboxing video of that one.
Yeah.
I also make the prestige format statues that are huge.
Yeah.
And they're over 3 feet usually.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I forgot what they call it. I don't think it's called Prestige. It's called not Premiere. I can't remember the exact name of it. Prime One Studios makes the biggest ones though. I did one of a Dark Side, and the entire body was just one solid big freaking piece. And I get this thing out of the box, and you see me struggling to try to put it on the base. You really needed 2 people to put this thing on there, and I'm like holding it like this big kid.
I'm sorry, I'm a wimp. I needed 2 people to help me put my Hulk versus Wolverine together.
That's funny.
I don't even know how Junior got that Doomsday in his house.
He has his a couple of his friends brought that in for him. And remember, he wanted to do a live unboxing of that. I was like, bro, it's too big. You know,
that thing. I saw that in person at my LCS, and that statue is ginormous. That Doomsday that just dropped, it's crazy.
I love the Prime One Studios pieces because of the amount of detail they have, and they're very true. They also are pretty true to comics, but you really got to have like a huge room. You know, it's got to be like some Bruce Wayne style house in order to put that thing in there.
The Kotobukiya.
Kotobukiya?
Yeah, the Kotobukiya. They do a lot. I think they take a lot of. There was one Thor I saw which was pretty much taken from an Oliver Koppel cover. And I noticed that that's what they do as well. They also, there are some that kind of look like dioramas. Are they the ones who is that the company that does connecting statues?
No, that's Connecticut's that does connecting pieces. Some of them do some connecting pieces as well, but Connecticut's is really known for it. They just don't do heroes. They do mostly like video game statues.
Oh, okay.
But Kotobukiya does make some cool dioramas. And they also have some higher level pieces as well. They go upwards of like $300 for their fine art pieces, which are very sought after, especially their X-Men line.
Yeah, very cool.
I'm going to have my first pop culture shock statue. In theory, it should be out next month. It's The Howling.
Oh, nice.
And it's only been a year and a half.
It'll take some time.
Yeah.
So, George,
I distributed them now too. They're being shipped by Sideshow.
Yeah. Sideshow has now become the official distributors of PCS. They no longer ship directly from them.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's very cool. One of the things you brought up was cons, and I'm going to a con coming up, C2E2 in one following week. I don't think I could ever buy a statue at a con, but I love the previews at cons. George, you travel to cons. If you want to tell everybody where the cons you've been to, and you go primarily just to check out the new statues and stuff.
Primarily to check out the statues and do interviews with the creators. Sometimes you can run into the sculptors there, which is really awesome. And you get some lot of cool information, the backstories on how they came up with the designs, because every sculptor does their work a little bit differently, which is awesome when you get that information from them. This year so far, I've gone to Winter Wonder Festival in Japan. It's primarily an anime convention, so the companies out there is Prime One Studios and Figurama Collectors, and we were out there with Figurama Collectors. They do high level anime dioramas, so you'll see these massive statues. Like the latest one they came out with is Attack on Titan, and this thing was like 48 inches round, you know, and it was just huge. And then it was like this big, and it was a massive piece, really beautiful to see. And then we do a couple of cons local in Florida. So we just did Comic-Con Revolution, which that was a smaller convention. I mostly did that so that, you know, I can run into people locally, and I wanted to meet Chris Claremont. He was there, and Donnie Cates was there as well, so that was cool.
Very cool.
And then the big one is San Diego Comic-Con. We try to hit that as much as we can. This will be our 3rd year in a row that we're going. That's where you're going to see all of your big name statues in general are going to be there, except for XM Studios. So everybody else is pretty much there. So Kotobukiya, Diamond Select, Tweeterhead Sideshow, Prime One Studios. There's Chronicle Collectibles, and then sometimes you'll find some people that are making like one-offs. You know, like they're making like something original that you've never seen before, and you'll find some guys out there like that, and that's kind of neat too. But that's like Sideshow's like biggest event, so you'll see this huge amount of statues there and figures and all kinds of stuff. My favorite is New York Comic Con, and mostly because of the fans. You know, you meet people there, not fans of my channel, but just fans of these companies, and the vibe there was just really neat. You know, so we were out there last year, and I had a really good time with everybody out there. It was a lot of fun. So,
you know, it's a great thing. You know, you go to your, you know, grandmother's house or an antique shop, you see the precious moments, Norman Rockwells and the Royal Daltons that everybody collected over the years and stuff like that. And then they see us nowadays with our Thors and Silver Surfers and Zatannas and Captain Americas. I wonder if our kids are going to be like, man, they collect the stinking Bowens, or does that like they consider precious moments? They won't. These are cooler than precious moments any day.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're so small.
Yeah, they're so small. Yeah.
But, my daughter loves them, man. You know, she's 4. She comes in here and she can name the characters now. Like when she sees Wolverine and she comes in, she wants to take a picture with each one of them. So cool. I love it. It's cool. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, we're going to be wrapping it up soon. I just want to thank everybody for coming into the chat. Thanks, John, Comic Book Kid, for being a great moderator. So we can, you know, some of the suggestions like Kat Rendez. Kat's a big collector of the Kotobukiya. I'm never going to get the name down, so I'll let George say.
Kotobukiya.
Yeah. She's a big collector of those. Kat says, turn on alerts on Amazon and eBay for certain statues, and you can get some great deals there too. Amazon, I do trust. Sometimes they deliver the wrong address in the city, but that's how it happens. But they're kind of good here, and that's good stuff. So I really appreciate all the community help in the chat. The questions were great. Thank you, everybody here. If anybody wants to shout out their channel right now, again, you're going to get a link to each of these guys' channels here whenever it's on the replay. If anyone wants to talk about what they have coming up on their show coming up, let me know. Go ahead.
All right, sweet. Chad. I'll take it over. I know tomorrow on my channel at 90MF Comics, I will be getting together with me and my friends, and we'll just be talking about weekly books that came out last week, and we'll be talking about what we picked up tomorrow because, as you all know, it is New Comic Book Day, and you will find me on my channel tomorrow, and you can also find me on MCE next Monday with George, and I'm sure he'll explain more of that in a moment.
Great.
Well, on my channel, MCE, like I said, we do all kinds of different collectibles. We have daily content, usually Monday through Friday. Tend to take the weekends off, but sometimes we have some shows on the weekends if something comes in. We generally do 2 statue reviews a week. There's a collecting news episode that airs every single Wednesday night, which that'll be tomorrow night. And that basically goes over my top 3 or top 4 pieces that just came out this week, so that if you want to pick that up, those will be my best of the best for the week. And then on Monday nights we do that Geek Show, and that Geek Show is basically a show about all kinds of pop culture things, mostly collecting, but we also talk about movies and video games and all kinds of stuff. It just sometimes it derails a little bit and it gets a little bit rowdy. Generally lasts about an hour to an hour and a half. It is usually our skit, and then we also now have Comic Book Club, thanks to Chad, and we go over a weekly read. And he's helping me get back into comics, so I love it, man. That part I dig. I look forward to that probably more than anything else lately. So
very cool.
Yeah, it's super awesome. I'm just trying to spread the comic book love because the comic book community is awesome here. So thank you guys for having us, JD. This is awesome. And TJ, it is awesome to actually be on here and meet you, face to face, quote unquote. So.
Yeah.
All right, TJ, what do you got coming up? Anything on your?
I got nothing.
Yeah, you got some stuff. We're just not going to announce any of that yet.
Yeah.
I myself will be on tomorrow night. I think doing Comic Core 2.0 tomorrow night. Also be on The Hunt on Friday with Tony Sanchez with special guest Comic Head 84. We're very excited about that. That you'll see, me, you'll see good girl art and golden age for sure. Again, I want to thank everybody in the chat for being here. If you have any questions you might want to pose to MCE, check out his channel. I mean, he's very personable, and they have a lot. They've got about I think you have like 6,000 subscribers or something.
We actually just hit 7,000, and we're at 7,100, but we're doing a giveaway right now. So if you guys want to jump in on that, we're giving away a Kotobukiya Thor, and we're also giving away an Iron Studios Hulkbuster.
I did enter that.
Oh, nice. All right.
So there you go. Thanks again, everybody, for showing in. This was Stranger Things. Next topic we're going to do, let's say we'll call it Stranger Things at the Zoo. So talk to you guys later. And thanks, everybody, again. Talk to you later.
Good night, guys.
See you. Good night.
Yep. Have a good